back up for 1 second. I want to share actually some sad news because Arnold Kegabyne, who was part of our team, passed away about now, I don't remember now, but maybe 10 days ago. And he was also brother of Clemens Kegabyne, who's the author and producer of the FileMaker magazine in Germany. So Arnold lived in two worlds, two communities, so to speak. He lived in the beeswax community because he was with beeswax for 6 years, and then lived with a family in Chicago. And he's also a big contributor to his brother's magazine by writing all kinds of articles over the years. He was also a friend to me and my family. He's deeply missed. So yeah, he just some freak thing happened, and he was rushed to the hospital, and they couldn't save him. So he's missed by his brother, his two brothers, Klaus and Clemens, and all of them were in the FileMaker community. So. Okay, so InspectorPro, performance collaboration and insight for development teams. I like to say this changes everything, but maybe not everything, but a lot. And you will see. So my name is Vincenzo Menanno. I'm at Beeswax. My current title is Chief Innovation Officer. I have over 30 years of experience at Beeswax. This is kind of from an old slide, so I'm not even sure it's current, but 500 clients, over 1,500 projects, and we do FileMaker, Tableau, web, and IT DevOps work. Frequent, we frequently post things to our blog, so you might find some interesting articles there, not just FileMaker related, but other things like Tableau and web and all kinds of things along with FileMaker. So I was at the Antwerp conference, and someone in Antwerp came up to me and said they read some article and it helped them convince a client for some server installation that they were doing. So anyway, it's really great to get the feedback from the community sometimes where this is a helpful tool. So today's agenda, just a brief history of InspectorPro over the years, workflow comparison between 7 and 8, a processing comparison. We'll do quite a few demos, and then if we have time, which I'm sure we will, because this is DIGFM, no other like DIGFM. So we'll have a lot of time, but anyway, and a recap. So a brief history of Inspector. This started off actually a long time ago as something called DocuScript, and some of us may remember that, some of us not, but some of you will remember Bob Cusick. And Bob Cusick had a tool called QuickStats, and it did everything but scripts. And I wanted to partner with Bob and say, hey, Bob, I'll do the scripting part and you do the other stuff. And Bob went on to do other things. He got interested in other things and moved on. And so then I decided, okay, well, I'll pick up where Bob kind of started and added the scripts and all the other things. And it was called Analyzer at the time. And I don't have any screenshots of Analyzer, but that went on for quite a while. And then when I left Waves of Motion and came to California, I rebranded it as Inspector, and it evolved over the years. And this was a version that had also localization support, which was a lot of work. And so the reason I show some of these screens is just also because some of these versions, there wasn't just an update, it was massive rethinking and architecting, etc. and and 8 is very much like that, in that spirit. So I'll share a little story. I worked on a project, and we delivered the solution to this client, and then we had worked on it for another year and a half, and we updated the solution, and it was much better. And the new version had some cool enhancements, and the client came up to me and said to me, "Why didn't you build it like that in the first place?" And I'm not one. English is my third language, so I'm not one for quick retorts in English. So, but he was a Mac user, I was a Mac user, and the first thing that came to my mind was, Apple delivered Mac OS 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. I think we were on 10.9 at one point. And I said to him, I said, well, Apple delivered all these different versions. I mean, why didn't they just build 10.9 in the first place? And he looked at me, he said, okay, you've got a point. So anyway, just to say that I have this image as a desktop image sometimes, and this comes from Unsplash. And I have the quote on the bottom left, to always take a chance on better. And this is kind of my driving mantra of sorts. And this is a quote from Edwin Catmull from Pixar. And the book is Creativity Inc. And yeah, it's just sometimes I see some things, some new features, and I think if I could, take those features and start using them, how could it improve something? So I'm always constantly looking to make things better. So let's look at a workflow comparison between 7, which is the current shipping version, and 8, which is the soon to be released version. So Inspector is sitting, being hosted on a FileMaker server along with the solution. The solution requests the DDR, and because it requests the DDR, it has to download the DDR, and so that takes time. And then to process it in Inspector, you have to basically send it back through Inspector to go to the server. So you download the DDR, you upload it back to Inspector. You're not able to script it. It's not server compatible, and it's very slow. Save as XML is actually even slower. So I'll show something a little bit later to show that point. Okay, so workflow comparison between 8. The Inspector is hosted on the server, just like in the other example, and your solution is hosted on the same server. With version 8, we've switched over to using Save as XML, and because of that, we benefit from the fact that it's scriptable. So I can run it right away on the server and generate it, and as soon as it's generated, I can ask Inspector to process it. So that means in this scenario, you can have Inspector open if you like, but you don't need to. Once the integration is set up with the add-on, you can just kick it off, and it starts processing, and it knows what solution it's linked up to. So it's like I like to say, it's like it gets out of your way. Save as XML is server compatible. We have an InspectorPro add-on for this integration, which we will see. And then a comment can be added when you fire it off, so that you can add a comment to what you did when you decided to run it. And then InspectorPro doesn't even need to be open, and it's very, very fast because it generates it on server. So this is the graph in 7, and this is the graph in 8. Some of the differences are tables. We had almost a 30% drop in tables, almost a 64% drop in table occurrences, and the big thing is the drop in relationships. So we re-architected it and completely thought about it in a different way. So we were able to reduce the number of relationships dramatically. So and then because the dependency table is the place where most of the activity happens. So like let's say a field depends on a value list and a script depends on a field. That those intersections happen in the dependency table, and that's where most of the importing and cross-referencing is going on. Then if we can make improvements there, we'll make direct improvements in performance. So we went from some odd 57 some odd fields to 17, I believe, or 14. And so the drop in indexed fields and the number of fields right away gives us a big performance boost. So another big deal, and this is probably one of the biggest aspects of this, is that 7 was because it processed the DDR, but the way it processed it was that every time you run an analysis, it would gobble up everything. So if you had, fields, layouts, tables, value lists, etc., a total number of 27,000 some odd, items that would go into different tables, and then 8,000 plus calculations and 15,000 dependencies. When you do the next analysis, you're importing all those items all over again, and so you will see degradation in performance once you keep importing this and importing this. After about 100 imports, you end up with millions of rows across all kinds of tables, and a total processing time probably around 18 hours or some odd number like that. So it's definitely going to take a long time. The big difference is 8 doesn't do that at all. It does something very different. And so what 8 does is the first analysis is, of course, get everything. And then every subsequent analysis is just get me the changes. So if you are refactoring your code and removing code, the footprint in Inspector is going to shrink. That means we're actually removing records in Inspector. And if you're adding code, then it's going to grow. Like let's say you add another script, another value list, it's going to add those records into Inspector. So what Inspector is doing is it's keeping a one-to-one representation to what's in your system, okay? And over time, in this case, the first analysis might take a minute or two. The subsequent analysis will take just a few seconds. And of course, depending on the size and complexity of each system, those numbers will vary. And we have 2 things that happen really. The first pass is scanning the documents and seeing if there's any changes, and scanning the catalogs, finding the changes and updating things where they need to be updated, added, deleted. And then there's a post-processing step where we're updating dependency counts and all that. So as soon as the first step is done, you can get in and start looking at your code. And so it's literally seconds, and you can dive in there and start poking around. The dependency stuff is going on in the background. So it's not unlikely that you could do 100 analyses in a day. You could, as a matter of fact, because it's scriptable, you can actually have a script schedule running every minute, every 5 minutes, and just processing and looking for any changes that have been made, and doing that completely in the background, and you don't have to do a single thing. The drawback with that, of course, is that you don't have the opportunity to add a comment for the changes that you've made. So again, to reiterate, the difference is after 100 analyses, you might end up with lots and lots of rows of data across all kinds of tables, whereas 8 just is a one-to-one representation with what's in your system. So The baseline import is much faster. It can be up to 5 times faster than what you would do in Inspector 7. Again, a lot of reasons for that. Like I mentioned before, much of the contributing factor there is the re-architecting of the dependency table, making it a lot simpler, etc. Incrementals can be up to 40 times faster. Obviously, mileage will vary here depending on size and complexity of a system, etc., and how much, because you have to run it when you make changes. If you don't run it and you made like a whole week's worth of changes, then it's going to have to work really hard to document everything that's changed. But because it can run very quickly, you might consider running it very frequently or every time you make a change. So new stuff that is in the save as XML. So we're no longer using the DDR. We switched over with this release. We are switching over officially to save as XML. The catalogs are something that we never had before. And the catalogs are interesting because they have a modification count. And that modification count, every time you make a change to an item, it updates the modification count of the item and the catalog's modification count as well. So what we do is we scan the catalogs. We see there's a modification in this case the base table catalog. Then we scan the base tables and we find which base table was changed, and then we update that and we're done. So literally, if you make one small change, it's in and out. We also have layout parts, which we never had before. So layout parts now give you information about all the objects that are in a part. It also gives you the field that is used as a sub-summary part. So we didn't have that before, and that was an omission. And if you use the field in the sub-summary part, it wasn't being picked up as a reference or a dependency. But now that will not be the case, because we will have it there documented as an item that is being depended on by that layout part. Okay, and then we also have table occurrence notes, which we never had before. And you can also add emojis, because that's my favorite thing to do, of course. So you can add emojis into table occurrence notes. You can add emojis into scripts. You can add emojis into calculations. Basically, they come through just fine in the XML. Okay, before I go into demo, any questions? I think I see some chat things here.
I saw that it was recording who did what when. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
Hey, Vince, I got an easy question for you. Table occurrence notes, is that notes on the relationship graph? That's what's new? Relationship graph notes?
Yes. Yes.
Vince, I have a question. Is it that you're going to have one inspector file corresponding to a particular solution?
One inspector file. No, you can have multiple solutions in Inspector for different systems that you work on. Just like in 7, you could say, I have this, client A, and they have their solution, and you run analyses for client A, and then you have client B as another solution, and you can run analyses on that. So you can have multiple solutions in the system.
Also, you made a comment at the beginning about Cusick, and you reminded me about the product that he had that was called ClickStyle, which was
oh, okay.
Remember that? It was an emulation of Microsoft Word in FileMaker. It was marvelous.
Oh, but he also had a product called ClickStats.
Yes.
And it was using the design, I think the early version of the design functions or something like that to get like I don't know, field names and valueless names and script other things. I don't remember how he was doing it exactly, but yeah. So probably both products.
Tony has a question that I have. Does the save as XML have everything that the DDR has plus more?
Yeah, I think this question came up also recently. I don't think we lose anything with save as XML. I think we gain more than what we lose. But so it's a little bit. You know how when you save the DDR, you have that dialog and you pick all the files you want.
Yeah.
And so you have them all open. Well, that's one thing you lose, because you don't have a screen to choose the file, but you have a script step to generate the XML for any file you want. And so they changed it such that basically you can generate the files independently. The other files don't even need to be open. You can just generate them independently. So that's one thing that's very different. The structure of the XML is also pretty different, probably significantly different, with the catalogs being the wrapper around all these things like fields and scripts and value lists. And so we gain the fact that we have this other node of catalogs, which we never had before. And like I mentioned before, just now, we have other things that we never had before. So I think we gain more things than we gain more things. We don't lose anything. But one thing is very different, is the way the XML files are generated and managed.
And there's one thing DDRs would expose would be the passwords for external sources. And I guess I don't know. Are those exposed in XML as well?
You mean in ODBC and external data sources like that?
Yeah, they would show the passwords there.
I know that like the account name and the account names have some kind of hash thing when you generate the output for that XML. I think it's still the same for the ODBC. I can't remember. Beverly?
External sources, like when we had the Claris ID, of course, was an email, and that was not good. To have that revealed in the DDR, but I don't recall anywhere that a password was ever revealed with the DDR.
The ODBC stuff, I think it used to reveal it. But I have to double check it because I don't remember right now.
If you've stored the password to log into the ODBC source, then yeah, I'm sure it does reveal it. But you don't want to save that script with that storage in there anymore anyway. So
well, yeah, well, if you have an automatic process that connects to an ODBC source, you just need to do a download from that every night. And you have to handle it somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Hey, if you're in before you go out of question mode, I slipped another one in there, which is what is the FileMaker version that gives you the most complete save as XML output? This seems to be a feature that they're currently working on, no doubt adding to, it would seem. And I'm just wondering if what's the latest that has added to the XML?
So the reason why Inspector 8 is not out yet is because a lot of we're relying on the XML, and a lot of fixes have happened in ETS but haven't been released yet. And so this next release will bring those fixes into that release. So whenever they release the next version, our plan is to release this tool. They still have other things to address, like there's always stuff to work on. But this is, in my opinion, a good place to start. And so this, whatever the next version number and version release is, this will require that version to work.
Okay, that's cool. Good to know.
Okay, so here's, let's see here. Reasons for using the DDR? No, not the DDR, the XML, save as XML. So we have metadata audit logging. We'll have change history. We still have references and dependencies like we used to have. With problem detection, we made efforts to expose what the problems are in a more kind of informative way. We have detailed information or current state is like what I refer to as one-to-one. It's like as soon as you update something and you run it, it's going to give you the current state of the item. So it's really helpful for keeping you moving and staying in the zone, so to speak. Integrations with Slack and other developer tools, team collaboration features like notes and tags, and we have automated capabilities with API integrations and much more to come. So let's take a look. So this is how you create a new solution. On the top, you have a new solution button. You click that and enter the name of your solution, and you'll enter the name of the main file that will generate the XML for your one file or your many files. So that's the controller file. You'll get a solution ID. That solution ID is what you use to enter into your add-on. And I'll show you how you add the add-on here. So here's a simple contacts file. We'll go into mode. We'll add the add-on, InspectorPro 8. And what the add-on does is it adds a few scripts, it adds a table, and it adds a layout. And so when you go into browse mode and you click this button, you'll get a card window from that layout that was added. And all you really need to do is enter that number, 472. Once you've entered that number, that's entered into that table. Then from now on in, these two files are talking to one another. I can run an inspector, kick off an inspector generation of XML from here, or I can do the same from the inspector file directly. So all you would do is you press the button, this dialog comes up, you type a message, hit return, and it's running. If you don't want to even bother writing a message, hold the option key down, hit the button, and it starts running. So it gets out of the way as quickly as possible. Any questions about this?
So what if I just wanted to take a look at everything that happens to be on the server, whether it's in one, because I don't even know, like some of the solutions are overlapped just because we happen to have relationships to some tables and others don't. And we just, and because we have like a common. Yeah.
So if you wanted to, let's say, make a group of them, you would have to find a way to generate the XML for all the ones that you wanted to process together. It could be all of them if you want. But what I'm saying is you would have to have one file that's kind of like your controller file that would say, okay, I'm going to generate XML in this directory, and I want you, this other file, you would say, I want you to generate your XML in that directory as well. So you'd have to do all of that, put all the XML in one place, and then you would let the rest of the script run, and it would call inspector, and then inspector would know where that directory is, and it would process all the files that are in that directory. So there would be some custom code you'd have to run to do that if you wanted to do it for all the files on that server. But if you've got, like, let's say 2 files that are part of a solution, basically it's the same logic. The scripts that are copied in here for the add-on, there's one script that you copy in the other file, and then from this file, what it would do is it would call the other script, and what that other script does is it generates the XML for that file. And then this one would generate its XML, and then when both of them are done, it follows the script execution, and then it would just run. It would tell inspector to go process that data. Does that answer your question, Eric?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we have three different integration options. We're going to look at them in the context of Inspector. So you can manually upload the XML like you used to before in Inspector 3. So you've generated it beforehand. It's in a directory. You point to that directory, and what it does is it sends the file to the server. It processes it on the server, and then it's done. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make some changes, and then I'm going to go ahead and process it again. But this time, I'm going to use window names. And what window names is it's going to use the name of the file that's in that field below it. So I just typed the message and I kicked it off. And I probably can let it run the whole time. But just to show you how slow this is, okay, so this is generating the XML for the meetings file, which is like, one of those starter files, obviously. And it's generating it locally somewhere on my computer. And then when it's done, Inspector then turns around and says to Inspector, say, okay, I need to send this XML now to the server and process it. You would not want to do this on a hosted file. Probably this integration option would be more something that I didn't bother adding the add-on to some file that I'm working on locally, and I just wanted to generate the XML for it and send it to Inspector. So when you generate it locally, it's a blink of an eye, depending on the size of the file. But for these small files, you wouldn't even see any dialogue at all. It would generate and it would send it right away. So again, I don't suggest that you ever do this on a large file because you're on a WAN. You'd be asking for a lot of trouble because it would take a long time to generate. So it's done, and now it's sending the file to the server. Now Inspector is processing it, and if we look, okay, yeah, so we'll do one last change here. We'll delete a few things, and then we'll run it one more time from Inspector. Okay, so then we'll go back to Inspector. We'll do the third integration option, and this one uses FMP URL. Again, type a message, and what it'll do is it'll call the script that's in that file meetings. It's already running on server. It's already done. If I click in here and I go to search, I'll see that I made these changes to the layout, etc. And we'll look at more details of that in the coming videos. Okay, so okay, resetting and deleting. So once you have a solution in there, and you've been analyzing or running hundreds or thousands of analyses, you might want to reset it so that you start over. And so if you click the reset button, it gives you a warning. You sure you want to do this? If you have notes and tags and you've added members to the solution, what reset does is that it doesn't touch those items. So it just gets rid of the analyses, it gets rid of the history, but all the notes and tags remain. And so when you import again, all those things will reconnect. If you want to delete a solution, you can also hold the Option key down, press delete, and it will delete the solution, and it will get rid of the notes and tags as well. So, with many of these dialogues, so you'll have like a quick shortcut, like if you wanted to hold the Option key down to bypass some of these dialogues, you can just do the action. So let's see, staying in the zone. All right, so I'm going to go to layout mode, and I'm going to make changes to this layout. So I'm going to change the name of the layout. I'm going to toggle all these different flags here. I'm going to enable quick find. I'm going to change the context of this table occurrence. and I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to also, actually, I'm going to delete, before I process it, I'm going to delete that hello button. And then I'm going to go ahead and run it. So I hold the Option key down, it's running. If I go look at the details of the results of the most recent analysis, I'll see one object deleted. I'll see all these 12 attributes that were changed on that layout. So I have one item that was deleted and then all these attribute changes for the layout. Okay, so let's do a little bit more. Let's go back into this file. Let's go to Manage Security. And now let's change this, this account. So I'm going to change the privilege set. I'm going to change the description. And I'm going to then save it and run it. And hold the Option key down. I run it. It's running on server. And if I go look again, I can see that Julia's account was changed, the description was changed, the privilege set, etc. Okay, I'm going to do some more changes to Julia's account. Okay, but this time I'm going to open up the dashboard. I'm going to go to the accounts list. I'm going to do a search. I'm going to actually bring up the history on that item. So actually, let me pause here. Let me talk about this for a second. So let me go back. So it's a kind of there's a lot of information packed into this window. So when you look at the history of an item, you'll see from the bottom going up, you'll see it says the account Julia, but this could be the field or the value list or the table or the script, etc. So the account Julia existed when the baseline import happened. That means when you ran your first analysis, Julia's account existed then. And the bar on the left is blue. If the bar on the left is green, it'll say the account Julia was added, and then it should say by who and when it was added and what analysis it was added. And then in the middle, the orange section in the middle is all for changes. So this account was changed by V. Menanno at 10:45 in analysis number 4. And these are the attribute changes for the description, the privilege set ID, and modification changes as well. And then at the very top, if the account still exists in the system, you'll have a purple bar. If the account was deleted, you'll have a red bar, and it'll say Julia's account was deleted by the person who deleted it. So if I continue playing this demo here, I go back in and I'll make one more change to Julia's account. So I'll change the privilege set again. I'll add some more text, and then I'll require password change on next sign in. I'll click OK, and I'll run it. This time I didn't hold the Option key down. This time I'm going to type a message, and I'm going to run it. Okay, it's running. If you look, there's the text. It got updated already. So what it just did was it ran the XML on the server. It processed it, found the changes, documented the changes, and wrote the history up. So again, it's a small file, but that's the idea. So I just deleted the account Julia. It's now gone. I can't find it anymore. However, if you go to the dashboard, you do a global search on Julia, you'll find it in the history, and you can click on the history icon again. And this time, if we look, we'll see the bottom is blue, the section in the middle is orange, all the changes that happened for that analysis, all the changes that happened for the next analysis, and then at the top, we'll see that red bar, like I was telling you, and the account was deleted by that person at that time. Any questions? Okay. Okay, so next demo. This is just a screenshot, and this is just showing you The schedule is running, it's running every minute. And the first line, the highlighted line, is a manual invocation of the analysis. And then every other invocation is a scheduled script that runs every minute. And then the third from the bottom, at 7:18, it ran, it picked up 1 addition, 2 modifications, and 1 deletion. So that's just the schedule running in the background. Let's look at layout styles. So I'm going to go to a layout, and I'm going to show you that this layout is called styles feature. And this layout has a default style. It has 5 theme styles. It has 5 layout styles, which means the style was saved, but not saved in the theme. And then it has 10 local styles, meaning I made changes to it and I never saved it as a style. So let me search for that layout. And now I'm looking at that layout, complements of Logicator. And now we can see here 5 theme, 5 layout, 10 local. So I'm going to just lower this so you can see it here. I'm going to go into layout mode. I'm going to make these changes. And so I'm going to change this to be one of the theme styles. And I'm going to make this change also to be a theme style. Okay, so I'm going to save this layout, go back to browse mode. I'm going to run it in Inspector by holding the Option key down. It's running. If I go back, look at my layout view here, and we'll momentarily see these switch from there to here. So there you go. Now, this is the thing I was saying. You're staying in the zone. You can keep working. You'll get information updated behind the scenes. And so it helps you kind of, refactor code and fix problems and see if the results almost immediately. Any questions about this? Okay. Next, adding users. So there's a users button. Users button lets you add additional users who can gain access to Inspector. And so you'll type their name, their email, and their account name. And then you'll have an option to set them up as an admin or a user. If you set up a user as an admin, they basically have access to everything. They can do anything they want. They can delete all the solutions, etc. If you set them up as a user, you have the option to grant them the ability to allow them to create and edit and delete solutions. So and that means that they can go in there and create their own solutions. But if you don't allow them that option, then the only way they can get in here is if you add them as a member to an existing solution. So over here, I'm going to add Tony Menanno, and I'm going to add him as a manager. And then I'm going to add myself as an architect. And then I'm going to add Brendan as a developer. So, and so now these 3 people would have access to be able to see this solution. I think, Eric, you had a question?
Yeah, what about external authentication, Active Directory groups?
Yeah, I think you should be able to just put in the Active Directory group name.
Okay.
And then that would be like an account that would be created. And I think I think that should work. I'll double check with Simon, but I did yeah, it should work. We should have support for it. So,
and just like, I mean, it's not quite related to this question, what you're doing right now, but it, we on the HTML DDR, I mean, it's not very readable, but like a business analyst or somebody could peruse and see who has access to what, or see different things in the DDR and to figure out how some things are working. We would make that available to some users on the network. Would this lend itself for people to people
so
high level users to look at and see how some things work? And Who has access to what?
Like you're thinking, if I go to some table, let's look at it in the context of like a SQL system, let's say. They go, oh, I want to see how many people have access to our students, enrollment table,
Right.
and who, yeah. So, yeah, I guess that, I mean, it's not probably, when it's not in this release, like but we're laying this new foundation. I can see a way of doing that, but yeah, but it's not something that would be easily accessible off of this. You'd have to work off of the privilege set. You'd say, okay, these people are in this privilege, and if I go look at that, that particular table, and I would see it in the context of this privilege, what can they see and do in this table, right? Is that right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
I have more questions on this theme. I don't know if I should ask those later or go ahead and ask them now.
No, you can ask them now.
Yeah, there's so one of the things we do like with because I'll provide a list of different objects and that they have access to, and they can actually click on those things and it'll take them to the HTML version of the DDR. So shoot them straight over there so they can see the script if they want to, or see the like all the different elements or fields that are in a table, things like that. And so they can actually click on the objects that are referenced externally. I mean, I guess you probably handle that a lot of that internal, where you can navigate around from object to object, like how many fields are, which fields are in a layout and so on. You can do that pretty easily within InspectorPro and Pro.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like when you're looking at a layout, we're going to see another example coming up here. You can look at all the objects that are on the layout, etc. But even in Inspector 7, we had a pop-up menu that say security perspective. And so you'd select a privilege set, and that privilege set then would let you see, like, in the context of that privilege set, what are the settings for all these fields, or what are the settings for all these tables? And that's existing in the current product, but we still have some work to do to bring that over to here.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then there was another thing that we had is when you select an item, you could have a pop-up menu come up that would give you all the privileges and the settings for that item under all the privileges. So again, it's another way to look at that data. But if I wanted to see, like, and spot check, like, I'm supposed to lock down stuff for, certain privileges, and I want to double check if I did it right for admin, they can see this, the users can see this. So, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a quick way to spot check it without having to quickly toggle from one privilege to another. You get all the answers in one place. So, yeah, that's something that we're going to bring back into here at some point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good.
Okay, continue. Locating items. So talking about things on layouts. So I have a text field, a text object inside a tab panel, and it's at a location 433, 235. Those are absolute references. If I go look at the layout, I'll go look for that layout. I'll find it. I'll do a search for DAO. And then I'm going to click on the number 40. That takes me to all the objects on that layout. And there's the text object. If I hover over the position, it'll give me the absolute position of that object as well. If I click on the blue arrow, it shows me its parent. So if I, for example, go to layout mode and move the object out of the container that it's in and then run it, you'll see the text object kind of move out from its container and be standing on its own. If I go back and undo that, or actually let's look at the history of the object. You'll see the most recent change, the parent object was panel, the parent object is nothing. So you'll see that that got picked up in the analysis. if I undo the change and then again, I run it, pull the Option key down, I look at the data in Inspector, and it's updated. Again, you can turn that feature off to stop the highlighting. And what I'm doing here is I'm just scrolling around, clicking on things. Performance is really good. When I did this recording, I was in Florida. The server's in California. So even over a WAN, using this solution is very snappy. Okay. Additional information. There's a lot to show in a lot of places. And so we use these popovers. And so we have an indication that there are triggers. How many triggers? When you click on the popover, you'll get all the details as to that item. If there's too much information to show in one list view, we split things out so that you just navigate to these sub-navigation areas. So general, styles, and we looked at styles just a moment ago. And then there's settings. So layouts have a lot of information, and layout objects are even more. Fields are a lot of them. So they just have subsections to navigate to. And you saw me use Logicator a couple of times. So Logicator comes in very handy to be able to call up what you want to search on. And we've improved it by as soon as you bring up Logicator, you don't have to choose what you're searching on. It assumes you're searching on the item, let's say a field name, a layout name, a table name, etc. So all you have to do is just start typing, hit return, and you'll locate the item immediately. If you want to search for other items, then you can pick the choice from the pop-up menu to search on other things. Okay.
Can you demo that you're talking about?
Can I what?
That the ability to find things like that. Can you demo that?
Yeah, I did it just a little while ago. Let me show it again.
Oh, okay.
So let me show this again. So here I ran it, and here I bring up the layout, and then over there's the Logicator find. And so then I just hit return. So that went by really quickly. I apologize. But yeah, so Logicator is integrated in there for everything.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah. And so you have Logicator for the item search. And Mark Scott is the author of Logicator. I encourage you or invite you to check out his solution. It's well documented. It's easy to hook up. It's a great tool. It's a great tool. So we also have global search, which I showed before when we searched for Julia's account. So global search can search on schema, calcs, and history now. So it's a little bit broader. But Logicator searches in the individual areas. Okay, so that.
So
yep,
if there's something that like a term or something that appears anywhere, like even a comment, it would you could find it.
You could do a global search to find it.
Yeah.
So if it's like a comment, then you could search on schema because we search in the field comments. If it's embedded inside a calculation, then you would search inside search in calculation.
But
so
if
then,
but if I don't know where it is,
just turn it on for all of them, and then hopefully it finds it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah. So it should find it. If it's in any calculation, it'll find it. If it's a name of an item, like a field name, a layout name, a script name, a comment, in the schema, you should be able to find it as well.
Right.
And then the history is kind of cool because, again, Inspector does a one-to-one, keeping track of things one-to-one. So if you delete something, it's no longer there in Inspector. So you can't search for it, right, in a schema or the calcs or Logicator. It won't find it. It's gone. But because you searched for it in the history and it was recorded in history to have been deleted, you can recover it from the dead, so to speak. Okay, moving on. Yes, other questions? No? Okay. Did I lose audio? You guys still there?
Still here.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so additional information and problems, we covered this already. The problems, if there's a warning triangle, you should get a popover. It tells you what the problems are that it discovered for that item. So that's improvement from the prior version. Dropping indexes, this is kind of cool. So I have managed database. I'm just going to show you the fields in this table, status, due date, and subject all have indexes. If I go into inspector, I've already analyzed it. Those three fields have indexes in the column. They have all. So if I go into here and I add the account name and password, and the account name and password is only stored during the session, we don't keep it. And then so I can drop the index for this item. This is recorded before we improve this UI and workflow. So this is different. It doesn't give a dialogue all the time. So this was done for every individual record. If I go to here and I process it, you'll look at the records in Inspector, they'll update momentarily. So that's updated. And if we go look in the schema, the indexes are gone. So it could be coming in very handy sometimes when you want to kind of clean up things without having to go in and hunt them down. You can also just do a search for a found set of records and just run it just once on all the items in the found set. So it'll clean up your indexes if you need to. So I had something strange happen to me that I haven't been able to figure out, and I don't know if this is a change in behavior, but I used Quick Find and I had a field that had a value in it. And then I used Quick Find and that was the only place I put that value. It found the record, but when I looked in the schema, it didn't update the field with an index. And I'm thinking, wow, did the behavior change? Does it like search without having to create indexes? Or am I like missing something?
Was the field set to not index?
The field? No, the field was set to automatically index. I just was surprised because in the past I was always thinking like, well, that's like if I use Quick Find, I'm just going to index all my fields all of a sudden. And so I was always hesitant to use it. But then I noticed this kind of odd behavior where it didn't index it. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll double check it again. Maybe it was late and I wasn't paying attention. So, all right. Are you still up for more? Are you done? There's more. Shall I stop? No. It's hard to gauge the audience when you don't see them.
Yeah. Well, I turn off the video not to be distracting, but oh no, it's good. So
Yeah.
there's more, right?
Yeah, there's more. There's more. You ready?
Yeah.
You've got some
Go for
shadows
it.
in the background that are weird.
Some what?
Shadows in the background, in your background. that are
It's
weird.
those shadows. Those shadows are the branches of a tree that are kind of wobbling
Yeah.
together. They look like me and two figures, one person leaning up against me or something. Anyway, so something really amazing is coming. And for those of you who like cats, that's kind of cool.
Well, it's a good thing I
Integration
told you
with
to
Git.
keep going.
So I'm just going to add a comment, obviously with emojis because I can't help myself. And I'm going to change this script step to choose a different menu. I'm going to change this calculation, and I'm going to delete this step. So I'm going to save the script, and I'm going to close this window and run it. Okay, so now I'm going to go look up that script. Again, using Logicator to find it. Where is it? There. Here's Logicator in action again. Master, hit return, and now I'm looking at the script. If I click on the kitty or get, I'm looking at the current state of that script checked in to get. Okay, get. We have different views that we can bring up. We need a blame view, and so we're leveraging all of the power that Git can provide. So so in this example, we're just looking at two kind of areas, but let's look at one more called history. And so this will bring up the most recent changes, and if I want, I can compare them side by side. There's the before and the after. So there's the line with the emoji that I added, the step where I made the changes, and then the line where I deleted the step as well. So I've been getting the help from Alec and Brendan on this, and I'm a total Git knob. So I'm just excited to leverage the power that Git can bring. And this is a web viewer. So you're looking at a web viewer for code that got checked in and the changes to that code in all within Inspector. You don't have to go to some other website or anything like that. You're looking at it all here. And the beauty of this and the power of this is that, like, if Alec wants to complain and tell me that he doesn't like emojis, he can just click that little plus button right next to the number 9. Right over here, and this is just a recording, so I won't do it, but you can click there and add a comment and mention me, add a comment. Why are you adding emojis to our scripts? So, and I can have a conversation with them about that actual script step. So all this is managed in Git. We don't do any of that stuff, but this is incredibly powerful, and we're going to have this capability in our hands very soon. So, and you can search by emojis. What are you talking about? You can search by emojis. So anyway, we're really excited to get this out, just because we want to use it internally, and so we're trying to get this done and start using it. Any questions? There's more, but I'm not going to do it right now.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. So I am done for my demos presentation part. I have feature comparison, and what that is just a bunch of slides. I'll show you them. They're just a bunch of slides that relate to feature comparison between 7 and 8, and what's in 8 and what's not in 7, and what's in 7 and not in 8, that kind of thing. And then there's a recap. So you tell me if you want me to go through this feature comparison and then do the recap, or just do the recap. So you tell me if you want to. What do you want to do? Feature comparison? I haven't done the feature comparison.
I had a question.
Sure.
Are you using any plugins with this, or just
yeah.
the web viewer?
Yeah.
You are. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Just to clarify, we are using the plugin, our plugin, to process the XML, and it's fully threaded, 64-bit. So basically, we manage all the XSLs, and then you give us an XML, and then we just process all the XSLs against it, and then we import all the results
Cool.
And so that's all the XML processing is done with the plugin. What you saw in Get, that's just integration with Git directly. There's no plugin involved in that.
Okay.
So you,
But
so your-
and that's for the web viewer.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah. Cool.
is your plugin useful for anything else other than InspectorPro, or is it just really for processing for InspectorPro?
I mean, mostly it's used by us,
Okay.
but
But I wouldn't like access that plugin to do potentially to do something somewhere else, like like monkey bread.
well, yeah, no, it's not meant for that, unfortunately. But you could look at the functions and derive what they do and make use of it, but it has to be, it's not something that you would just install the plugin somewhere and it works. It has to be registered for it to work. So it's part of the inspector solution, really.
Are you using the Git API to converse with Git to be able to do the versioning of the scripts?
Right now, I would defer to Alec and Brendan because I believe we would be doing it. And again, I'm not knowledgeable about Git. I just see the power in it, and we decided to integrate with it. But,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either how it's actually sending
yeah.
it.
Probably. I mean, yeah, I would
Yeah.
assume it is, but
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
we had an early version
Git's
a few
fabulous.
years ago. Yeah,
Oh.
and that was using the API, but it never
Yeah.
launched beyond beta.
Yeah.
So we might have leveraged that this time around. I don't know.
thank you.
Yeah, there'll be automation for sure. And so, yeah. All right. So let's go through any other questions? Okay, so feature comparison, major enhancements. Plugin is redesigned for performance. We still have the plugin. So Inspector 7 had its plugin. Inspector 8 is a different animal. It's the same 64-bit, fully threaded, etc., but architecturally it's completely rewritten. Just mostly because we have a different approach in 8, and we had to consider that when we did the plugin. So that work happened years ago, and actually the work on converting the XSL documents that I had that worked with the DDR and now work with the XML, that happened years ago. But then I stopped because, well, I wasn't seeing any changes in the XML from Claris. And then all of a sudden in ETS, I just saw just a slew of like, oh, wow, they fixed this and they added that. And so then I picked up work again late in the summer of last year. And now we're getting to the finish line here. So, yeah, so new architecture, DDR, we switched over from DDR to save as XML. The other thing is that this version will have subscription-based licensing as well as perpetual licensing, but we're trying to keep it simple. So hopefully it's not too complicated. You gain some new insights from analyzing your solutions. You've got history tracking on any item along with attribution and many new capabilities that we didn't have in DDR. So feature comparison. Process on server, we have that in both in 7 and 8. The only difference is in 8, now you can generate the XML directly on server, and it processes it on server. Slack integration, we had it in both versions. In 8, currently we only send out notifications when an analysis is complete, but we have other plans to expand that. We have some other features in our backlog to add some more interesting notifications for Slack, not just the notification of when it's completed an analysis. You will be able to attach notes to any item. Notes are attached by UUID. If a solution is reset, the notes can be then retained and they link themselves back up. Same thing with tags. same approach. So progressive updating, the ability to only keep in sync with your solution is changing, and that is only available in 8. So we don't have that in that capability in 7. InspectorPro add-on, that's only available in 8, and it's easy to configure and install, like I showed before. Local processing, we have that in 7 and 8, so you can have a version of an 8 of 8 and just on your machine, and you can run it locally. But the real benefit is when you host it. So when you host it, then it's running in the background, and it's just giving you the freedom to continue working. So upload server for processing, we had it in both. Process entirely on the server, meaning the XML is generated and processed on the server only in 8. InspectorPro add-on integration, again, using the API. That's a repetition from the add-on. 2 simple steps to bolt it on. Multi-user support, yeah, we have that. Solution restriction to members. So this was improved in 8. We did have it before, but I said it didn't have the same kind of feature set or capability. Restriction by public or private in 7. We had this thing where you could say the solution is public or private, and so we just abandoned that in 8. We just have it so that you can add users and then say these users can access it and these ones don't. Time zone support, allowing you to see timestamps in your local time. Delete a solution. Only admin users and users who have been granted the ability to manage solutions can delete solutions. And the same thing with resetting a solution. You can mention users in Slack. There's new features coming with that in the future. Again, subscription-based licensing, unlimited number of solutions, unlimited number of analyses, extra areas. We have that in 7. It's not completely surfaced in 8, but it's there behind the scenes, and that's coming. History of items, quick and easy to see changes from prior versions. Baseline analysis, we have that in both versions. That's actually a typo. For the baseline analysis, it's almost 5 times faster. So adding watched items, this is something, this is not done. A graphical summary, this is also some stuff that's being worked on. So the recap, staying in the flow, that's re-architected from the ground up. A one-to-one representation of what you have in your system. We got history tracking at the item level and at the, so like a history of changes, like an account was changed, but we also track history item detail. So all the attributes of that account, what were changed. Notes and tags, we have attribution, we have logicator search, we have get integration support, subscription-based pricing, and again, we have global search. We used to have it. We have it for schema and calculations, but we also now have it for history. We have new capabilities in the Save as XML, like catalogs and attribution, layout parts, and table occurrence notes. And this really is just setting the ground stage for more cool things to follow afterwards. This just, once we get this out, we're basically re-architected in this new way of doing things. We'll be able to add new innovative cool things down the road, but that's it. That's all I have.
The future items, would they be like major upgrades or like 8 point somethings?
I mean, whenever they're ready, they'll just we'll put them out, and then we have a way to use the data migration tool update your solution, and we'll have to figure out, if there's any other, processing that we'll need to do to get you those new features. But yeah, so basically we're not looking to time ourselves on any kind of calendar cycle or anything. So we'll just work on new features, and when they're ready, we'll do like what Christian does. Every week he'll release something.
Is it James, or is it James Branham has a question?
James.
I came in, joined late here from the beginning. Is any part, or put it this way, does this solution install on a system that is isolated from the internet and you run it completely standalone?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not.
There's like in the last version, if you registered it, it was also standalone. If you had a demo, it would call home to unlock the ability for it to run. Now, when you download it, you'll get an activation code for the trial, and it'll unlock it for your trial. If you download it, you purchase it, you put your license in. There's an option to allow sending metrics for analytics for us, but you can turn that off. Otherwise, if you turn that off, there's nothing that it sends out or communicates externally. It all runs locally. There's no. We'll have to see about the Git integration. I guess the Git integration. I guess you could have like an on-prem Git installation, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check with Simon and Alec and see. But if you don't use that feature, then it's all local.
Okay, and so that would imply that there's no web application dependence, no offsite or on the web cloud data storage?
That's correct. No, that's correct. Nothing.
Okay. And is this installed both on a local machine as well as server, or both?
You can install it on you can have the user open it up and look at the data, or you can just have it run on server, and the developers don't even know it's there, and there's just a schedule running to pick up the changes. So Inspector does the basic thing is Inspector doesn't need to be open for analyses to be processed, because with Save as XML, it basically runs them on the server and then tells Inspector to process them. Right now, the requirement is that you'd have a development server, or whatever you want to call it, and it would host Inspector and your solution side by side. In the future, we're looking to be able to have Inspector on one server, your solution on another server, and then whenever it generates the XML, it sends it to the server with Inspector, and then it processes it there. Right now, the requirement is they both have to live on the same server, but you don't have to have Inspector open locally on your client.
Okay, so that would mean, we have a 3-server sequence here. We have a dev server, a QA server, and we have our production server. So in this particular case, we would need multiple instances to run on dev and QA for sure. Are those separate?
Are you making any changes? Are you making any changes in QA? Are you making development changes in QA?
The intention is no, but we do have users interacting and putting data. There's also the issue that, let's say something like we use 360 deploy right now from 360works. And when you do a migration, but the default is it takes value lists accounts from the production unless you change it to come from your dev, because it makes a presumption that you can actually make value list changes and account changes on the production environment. So those would be the kind of things that might happen. certainly from a test standpoint, but I do know that one of the things we have to do, because we have email groups, is we have to put in testing groups and deactivate the production steps and then activate the more restricted ones. So there are going to be some changes, and I just want to make sure that when we get ready to push to our production server, that we've turned off all of the dev scripts, the testing scripts, and turned on the production one and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to follow up with you, James, if you have more questions. Happy to review that with you.
So does the license cover more than one server or multiple servers?
Yeah, the license, we haven't finalized those details, but yeah, the license would cover however many servers you want to install it on. It's not server restricted. If you get a site license, you can put it whatever. We'll announce more of those details because I just want to make sure that I have the accurate information. I don't want to announce that just yet here because we're still trying to fine tune all that.
Okay, sounds good. I don't see any showstoppers for it, for us anyway.
Okay, cool.
Is there a chance
Let's
that
see,
is there a chance that Claris could change the XML and break InspectorPro, like in any way?
oh yeah, for sure. They could for sure, make a change to the XML, and it would definitely break what we're doing, but hopefully they don't do that.
Has that happened in a released version of FileMaker yet?
Well, in the DDR, at one point, I don't remember what version, 19 something, there was some new feature that was added, and it wasn't added to the DDR. And it was like, oh, what's going on? So it almost looks like end of the road for DDR. I don't want to say that officially because I don't know, but to me, the huge benefits that we're getting with Save as XML and all of what you see here is possible due to the fact that structure is different, and you can run it on server. All that is giving you all these capabilities.
But that new feature that they didn't include in the DDR, that didn't break what you were already tracking, right?
No, it didn't break what we were already tracking, but now it was like an omission. Like it's a new feature, but we don't have a way to represent it. So,
but that's more understandable than
but
not being able to do your analysis at all.
Yeah. So that would be a big thing. But they did change one thing that caused some problems. I forget what it was. I think it was with a value list attached to a field or something like that. And that caused some problems, what they ended up fixing. Otherwise,
it sounds like minor stuff. Like it didn't ruin the whole file, so you couldn't process it at all. Or
yeah. I mean, there were some issues that the ID. So like if you have a system with two files, and you have and there's UUIDs for things. They're not just IDs, but they're UUIDs as well. And so if you have a UUID for a field that lives in file B, and then you have a file A that references that field, so you'll have a field reference, right? So you need to be able to point to that field, you would need the UUID of that field, and you need to know what file it's in, right? So I think at one point early on, that UUID was not accurate. They were giving us the wrong UUID, and those a lot of things like that got all ironed out over ETS, and then something else was happening where anyway, there's a lot of fixes. Oh yeah, duplicate UUIDs were showing up. So you option drag a tab panel, and it's got components inside it, and then all those components have duplicate UUIDs to the ones that were there before. And so that one, I mean, UUIDs, you'd expect them to be universally unique, but
Yeah.
some people don't think along those same lines. So anyway, but those will get for sure fixed. So.
And it looks like James may be raising his hand again.
Yeah, sorry. Another question. How many versions back will your InspectorPro 8 work? Because I do have databases that are FileMaker 18, and it does have the same.
Yeah. Yeah, no, none, 0. So basically, when we come out, it'll be coming out when FileMaker next release comes out, because that'll have all the XML fixes. If you have an older version of FileMaker, it has all the XML bugs, so you won't be able to use it. So it'll be, so if you wanted to analyze it with this release, then you'd have to take that file, open it up in the next release, generate the XML, and then use it that way. But unfortunately, those other releases were so buggy with XML that it would just be a complete mess. So
does that include 19.6.3, which is the latest client version I can talk to an 18 server?
No, this will be
Yeah, he's waiting for a release of FileMaker that's not even out yet.
Yeah, that's not even out yet. Yeah, like Eric was saying, I'm future oriented here. What did he say? Like,
beyond the cutting edge.
cutting edge, beyond the cutting edge. Yeah. So I'm yeah. Unfortunately, James, this release, it will come out whenever the next release of Claris FileMaker Pro comes out, and that's the one that there was a lot of changes in ETS, and they fixed a lot of things, but unfortunately those ETS XML changes haven't made it out yet, and they're supposedly coming out in this next release. So we're waiting for that to release, and then we'll also release this.
Yes, I have well, if nobody else has any other questions, I guess I have a question for whatever audience is left. Is anybody, and this is where I get into the tough questions. Is anybody using any other FileMaker file analysis tool or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of those other tools, but I can tell you that we have different approaches, and we have different strengths and weaknesses. And so sometimes I heard people say, well, I have them all. And it's like, okay, well, you use one for one particular reason, you use another for another reason, etc. Right? So our emphasis again is kind of the things that I showed you, which is kind of in this release is staying in the flow, only documenting what you have in your system, no longer documenting everything over and over and over. And then the other main ingredient is change history, if you wish. Oh yeah, collaboration. That's the big thing for us. We're a large team, and so we're constantly exchanging information in Slack, and we're talking about a project. And normally we don't staff a project by just one person. We like to have at least a dev and an IT person, a dev and a designer and an IT person. So there's different tasks and roles, and so we want to have one central place where we share notes and information about a solution, etc. So, yeah.
So if you're doing a lot of that in InspectorPro anyway, well, would there be any incentive to use Git also, or?
Well, Git is a completely different animal. I mean, Git is, we're doing it, although I will say this, that So let's say, Eric, you're editing a script and you save it, but you don't run it in Inspector, and then Tony, you go in and edit the same script and make some changes. If then Tony saves it and runs the XML through Inspector, that script attribution will show Tony's name, and your changes that you made, Eric, won't be picked up. So right now you have to run it. Otherwise, if you don't run it, Inspector is not being told to do anything, so it doesn't know to work on anything. However, if you have a schedule and that schedule runs frequently, it'll pick up whatever is ready. So if you've saved something and the schedule hasn't run yet, and then Tony goes in and makes changes and saves it, and now the schedule runs, it'll pick up Tony's changes, and the script, the latest attribution will say Tony, and the modification count will go from 5 to 7 because 2 changes were recorded, right? So the modifications that happen in modification count 6 are not recorded anywhere because it wasn't run. So that's something to be aware of, and we hope that we can make improvements there in some way. We'll see, but right now, that's the things to be aware of.
Well, does InspectorPro offer any like tips on security? Like, hey, you got this thing wide open, or you're or anything like that?
No, not right now.
Okay.
But like what would you like to see? Like, for example, if you say address, we're assuming it's an address field, but you can name address like location where a person resides or something, I don't know, so like we can't semantically infer meaning to some system where, might be multiple languages and different ways of doing it in different places. I guess it would be nice if Claris provided a way that we could label certain columns and say, this has, what is it? What is it
Security
called again?
implication?
PII information,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then we could, then you could just search for those items and see which ones are accessible by what people, etc. Right? So David, do you have a question?
Yes, you've talked about putting on the server, and it seems like a good idea for a lot of solutions, but I pretty much do all of my development just with local files. So it works okay in that scenario as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only drawback is if you have it locally is when you run it, you just have to wait to get back to work.
Right.
Because you have to wait till it's finished doing its thing.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thought, since I don't know if you covered this already, but if you have a development version of something somewhere and you want a comparison between what your development version is and what's actually running in production on server, you can do those kind of comparisons, right?
I mean, it's not really designed for that, because what you're doing is, yeah, I guess you could do that. I mean, the file names would probably have to be the same. And Brendan, correct me if I'm missing something here, but you would run their first baseline, and then you have the DDR from the other, the XML from the other file, and then you upload that, and then assuming that the one that the one that you generate the XML for is a later version, so you don't have modification counts that are in reverse, right? So because you uploaded the dev copy, you made more changes in the dev copy than you did in production, and now you're comparing dev versus production, and that's the reverse. You want to compare production versus dev.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, either way, if somebody like went in there and, hey, you changed something in production without going through dev, it'd be nice to be able to alert ourselves to things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. I don't like right now. We're looking at it as incrementally moving through development.
Off the
And so
same.
if all of a sudden you introduce an XML that comes from like, it like you've made like modifications to layout ABC. It has 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you bring in a copy that has layout ABC with modification 4. I mean, it's like, what's that? I don't know how it would behave.
Vince, would it show up as a deleted item from the dev copy because it's not in the deleted copy, but it's in the live?
My brain is fried. Brendan?
Yeah, because it wouldn't exist, would it? It wouldn't exist in dev, and then it.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
missed the question. What was that?
You'd really mess it. Yeah.
So the question was, Eric says, I have my development copy, and then I want to compare it with the production copy, but development is moving forward. It continues to move forward. And then you compare back to some early version of XML that was an earlier state of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it would get totally messed up, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Because they're different branches, essentially.
Yeah, it'd be a big branch difference.
Eric, don't do that.
Yeah, different history, and then
Yeah.
things get created, and then you compare it with prod, and then suddenly all this stuff gets deleted, kind of, or at least appears
Yeah,
as if it's,
something like that.
something. Yeah.
I'd have to experiment and try it, but not a good idea.
Oh yeah, well that was what we were hoping to track, is like when somebody did something that wasn't a good idea.
Well, you could, I mean, take the, I mean, if you think, so the dev copy is a copy from prod that you're starting off with, and you take that analysis, that's your baseline. So you're assuming that that copy is the same as the production copy, right? You could also just take the XML from production and the XML from prod, and you can generate a hash for those two files, and you can just check them at any point in time. Let's say you keep doing development, you just want to check to make sure no one has touched prod. If the hash is different, then someone has touched prod. They did some changes. So because the XML no longer has, what did you say? It no longer has the record counts and timestamp of when you generate the XML. And that's one thing that I think Hansa requested, to get rid of the timestamp, because now what you can do is, because you don't have record counts as part of the XML output for how many records you have in a table, and you don't have a timestamp, you can generate that XML at any point in time. And even if you add records, etc., and now you can just compare the hashes of those files, and you would know instantly if anybody made any changes to your production environment. So you could do that. Maybe that's helpful. I don't know. Can
a customer add tables to InspectorPro and relate things that are in InspectorPro to other, I don't know, other added tables or an Excel?
Yeah. So we're thinking of doing that. We're kind of on the fence of the way to do it. But yeah, you would have a file, and then you would have a file to be able to, you have an account in there. I can create a file and access tables and information in your own file. So if you wanted to create your own layout list view to see information, you could then pull it into your copy of your file. We're just we're trying to decide what the best way to do that is.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, like, as an example, as I was thinking, because I have my own solution to pull out Active Directory group accounts and point what it is they have access to out of the DDR that we have. But it'd be nice to do that. Like, oh, here's my table of Active Directory accounts. Now I
Yeah,
can see
like
who has access to what through InspectorPro.
yeah. So you put this bug in my ear a long time ago, and I haven't forgotten, and I will get around to doing it, but like it unraveled all kinds of like, oh my gosh, well, if we do that, then it would be nice to say, like, if this user runs this script, will they have any problems? Will there be any fields that they're trying to set? Like, I look at it from the point of view, not just from access, but from execution, right? So if the user runs this script, will they have any execution errors because some field is not accessible, etc., right? But then it unraveled all kinds of things that you'd have to consider, which is, if it's a single file, it's still a lot of work and complicated to do. But if it's a multi-file system, then it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, they're multi.
Like, how would they access under what privilege are they accessing the other file, and all kinds of things like that.
Oh yeah,
so
it's complicated with the. I have to do it
I
now
mean,
too, because you have the different groups in there. They're in a hierarchy, right? So depending on how high up the account group is in the list, that's what decides what access they have, right? So they could be in multiple groups that have access to FileMaker, but they're accessing FileMaker only with the top one. And that's stuff I had to figure out to get it to work. And then of course it's different in different files, but.
Yeah, but you're now bringing into the mix all your directory group lists of people in addition to, like, we're not even tracking that, right? So that's something separate that you're adding to this, to solving that problem. But at a very basic level, if you know this person is accessing it under this privilege, then it would be great to see like a kind of a list of like, okay, this person has access to these fields, they can read these, they can write these, they have no access to these fields, et cetera, right?
And vice versa. Like if you want to say, oh, who has access to the social security number record, field, you could go back and say, well, here's a big list of all the people or all the active directory groups that can actually see this field, because you can't really do that very easily with the DDR stuff that we have now. We can. I can go through each and every privilege set and see who has access, but I have to go through them all. I can't just point at an object and say, who has access to this, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let me jump in on this. Eric brings up something interesting that coincidentally we were working on today with a customer who's got a lot of native accounts, and then they have an Active Directory structure. And my take on what's already been said is that with an Active Directory structure, the individuals, let me put it this way: you have the Active Directory groups, and you have the associated privilege sets, and then there's a bit of a twist because there's the possibilities Eric mentioned that someone might be in more than one Active Directory group. So I believe it short circuits from the top down. It'll take the first group that the person's in and the associated privilege set. So that would be something somewhat more difficult to calculate than with individual accounts or the native accounts in FileMaker. And then the other thing that I don't know the answer to is with native accounts, the account names are native to FileMaker, therefore available through the XML, and I would assume the save as XML structure. When you have an Active Directory structure, the individuals in a given group, that's in a separate structure that would need to be merged, would be my understanding, in order to be able to figure out what the heck is going on. So it is more complicated. It seems more complicated with a FileMaker with the Active Directory external.
Yeah, and I was able to simulate the first part with the the hierarchy, like that top one being the one that they're actually accessing with. I was able to figure out that part simply by just through relationships, right? Because actually the one that's on top of a relationship, that's the one you can see. And so I just flatten that view so you can actually only see the one that they're accessing with through the relationship between the relationship. privilege set. And
So basically, you're resolving what privilege, what's the highest level of privilege that this user has access through, right?
Yeah.
And so what we would have to do, the kind of meeting point, what we would have to do is figure out, like, under this privilege, what can this person see? So if you figure out like what the privilege they have, what's the highest privilege they have access to, and
Yeah.
then you just say, okay, well, if this person can see vendor access, let's say level, then this is the things that they can see if they're under that level.
now,
Mind
InspectorPro can
you-
already see part of that, right? Because I gave a list of all the person's Active Directory groups, which is what server collects anyway. Oh, that would be fun if if we could actually get FileMaker server to collect those.
So,
But anyway,
just to clarify a point here, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that FileMaker doesn't do supersets of privileges where you can aggregate and take
No.
the pick of the litter or whatnot. What it does, I believe, is that if someone is, as Eric was saying, in multiple Active Directory, it will find the first in the list from top to bottom, and
Yeah.
it'll take that. And if that happens to be low, so be it.
yeah, and the parts so on the DDR, those are actually in the order that you that they are on the list.
Yeah,
So it's pretty easy just to go ahead and point, relate that list of Active Directory groups that the user has and join it, and you'll just see the top one. And, I mean, of course, that doesn't work
right.
well if you do a search, then it kind of ruins that, because you'll find all the Active Directory groups that person's in. But when you're just looking at a view from the perspective of the user's access to something, you can go through the top one and see what they can see.
Yeah, it's definitely it would be great to have some kind of analytics like that, where you can quickly see, like, okay, here's this user in this group, what can they do, what can they see, right? Yeah, so definitely something that again, you mentioned it before to me, and I haven't forgotten, but I've been prioritizing, getting this out, and I will circle back on it and see what we can do in the future. But it's definitely important. I agree. I think just to add another comment there, sometimes people can build things where it's like inside the data, there's additional access that is allowed, and we don't have that in the metadata. So like,
nobody's going to have a solution to that problem unless they build it themselves.
yeah,
What was
like,
that inside
okay.
the data? Since I didn't
So like,
understand.
let's say you have a user and you say, oh, when this user logs in the solution, you can build a UI to say, oh, this user has this other option that they're able to do. And
Some
and so if they have that option turned on,
calculations,
then or I don't know, it could be using one of those extended privileges features, or the script could have some logic that says, oh, you have this flag that allows you to run this report. So then you run it full access so they can see the report, but normally they would not have access to see that report. So things like that, which I don't.
It gets I think it goes beyond the scope of any expectations I'd have from any analytical tool. What I would say is that I've said this before, years ago, we had a customer with the IT department was not really there. So we built an Active Directory structure. And I think it's applicable. Well, I know that it's applicable to mapping the logic that's represented in an Active Directory. It's essentially, it's 8 FileMaker tables talking to each other to identify the roles. It ain't easy though.
Yeah, I agree.
But you can integrate the supplemental privilege structure. Maybe privilege isn't the right word, but not FileMaker privileges. But if you click a button, are you allowed to do that? It all can be integrated into a single structure. But it ain't easy.
what Vince was describing was beyond what I was even hoping for. But yeah, he talking about like tracking down what, whether a script, he's going to have problems running a script or going to certain layouts or whatever. That's
Well, throw in run with
like
full
we're
access and
like,
it just doesn't stop.
yeah, like there's
Which is-
incompatible access, I guess is what he was thinking about, what Vince was talking about.
Yeah,
checking.
or or being proactive and reviewing your code to say, execution possible execution errors. Like, so some person goes in and tries to do something because they should have the right to do that, whatever.
Because you gave him
But,
access to the script, but yeah, not necessarily
yeah,
everything.
you gave them and then because you locked down their access to the data, their script is trying to get access to some data that they don't have access to, because your script is going to need that data, but then they don't have access to the data. So it's kind of giving insight into you as a developer to say, hey, heads up, if you grant the user the ability to run this script, then you might encounter some problems, etc. So
unless you give the script full access, then that goes away.
Well, and that gets
Yeah.
complicated because the script run with full access, calling a subroutine and an external file with full access, there's a bit of a complexity there. And one thing that I saw recently that surprised me after 30 years of FileMaker development was there's a really cool privilege set that's built in called read only. And if you read the comment, it says that everything's read only except for globals. And I thought, wow, that's great. And it is great, except you can't set, well, we tried to set the globals from an external file and that didn't work. And it's like, oh, you can set the globals from a script inside, but not from an external script. So live and learn, right? So it's a very complicated topic.
Yeah, it doesn't like
Yeah.
you like access they would have because they're logged into both files.
It's just like you
doesn't
can't
work
set
with the script. Yeah, the script has to be on the side where
it's scope to the file.
Well, that goes to the whole topic of like separation model, which is a nightmare in my opinion, just because like anytime you start, thinking about, oh, I'm just going to run a script in that file, but I want to run the script full access, but no, I have to run the actual script in that file with full access. And now I've got to break all my rules and patterns and way of doing things. But anyway, it gets complicated. So
yeah, and you could also set a field by name too. So you can grab someone's account name and then decide whether they're going to set their own field in a table, and you don't know if they've got access to it unless their name matches. So any sort of abstraction of logic removes the ability to check for availability.
Yeah,
we try not to do those things.
Chris Moyer had a great. What's that?
I say Claris advises against creating your own security models whenever possible.
I would do it. You just have to know what you're doing. I would do it as a challenge, although they remove my post to community. People do it. People who say don't do it, do it. Be careful.
Well, Chris Moyer had an interesting technique once he showed me. He showed me that you can locking down a record to be edited. That would only be able to be edited when you're within a script that's running. So he added to security, get current script name equal such and such, right? So the script had to be in this pause state, and then you could edit the record, but no other place could you edit that record because you weren't running that script, so to speak.
Cool.
I thought that was like very clever. I don't know if I'd want to put a script in a pause state, but anyway. All right. Well, any other file topics that we should discuss?
Well, I think we did it.
No,
Good job.
I did.
Another great meeting.
Another great meeting. Yes. I can't believe I finally did this meeting.
You did a bunch of stuff elsewhere.
You've been busy out there.
Oh yeah, no, I have purposely been lining them all up after Claris Engage because I wanted to get the word out there, because we're moving quickly to the finish line to get this done. So, you know, hey, now's the time. Let people be aware of it. Let them, you know, get it out there, and then iterate. So, yeah. So I have done some private meetings for some groups. I've done the FM disc meeting last week because they meet on the second Friday of the month, I think.
It's
And so
neighborly.
last Friday was the second. What's that? And then
It's neighborly.
other
You're
groups.
California people.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah. So
But this
yeah,
was the
so
best one, right?
pardon me.
This was the best presentation, right?
Good
Yeah,
job.
of course, of course. Come on.
Good job, for Eric.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to take the opportunity because Brendan is here too. I want to acknowledge that he is a big contributor to the success of where we're at with this, and he's kind of laying low behind the scenes. He's
Yeah, I
there.
didn't speak much.
I know, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what did Vince say that was wrong?
No, not
So-
much, not much.
I really am very grateful for the collaboration and the pair programming that we do together. Sometimes he has really far out ideas, and I challenge him and question them, and then sometimes I have some ideas and he challenges me. But I think the combination together, we've done something pretty amazing, and I'm really excited to get it out there. But I acknowledge that I could not have done this without Brendan's help. So,
Hey, speaking of far out there, remember when long time ago you had this this JavaScript?
Script Universe.
Yeah, it was like had all the little blobs of all the objects
Yeah.
floating around. Whatever
We
happened to
have,
that?
yeah. It's sleeping. It's gonna come back. Don't worry.
Really?
Yeah, you're gonna have to wear Vision Pro to see it though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, and Brendan and I actually took it a step further at one point. We built a constellation view or something. I don't know what we called it, but like you could selectively pick the scripts that you wanted, and then you would generate this file, and this file could be something that you would host, and it would be like a listener. And then whenever a user ran, like let's say for example, you had a critical shipping process, and you wanted to see every time shipments would happen, it would light up the nodes on that script to say, oh, a shipment just happened. And then not only that, we could add sounds to it, and then it would go boop, 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 and it would run. So like imagine, I mean, a thing, again, AI, user experience is not just about seeing things, but about hearing things.
Yeah.
So like you can put it in the background and you hear it all day because shipments are happening. And then when you hear silence, say, oh my God, what's going on? Why aren't we shipping anything? So it's another way to have a user experience, right? So
With a flatline sound.
those things, yeah. Ooh. Yeah. So definitely once we get this done, we definitely want to revisit visualizations and all that kind of stuff.
On that note,
Yeah.
I mean, I have like a really old file that we've accumulated layouts and scripts and all kinds of things over the years. And it's like, well, how do I know whether any of this stuff's being used anymore? And I don't want to go through all the like hundreds of scripts and like make them log themselves or something like that. It would be nice if a server or something would say, hey, these are the things that have been used in the past year, and here's the things that have not been used at all. And then we can get rid of them stuff.
Yeah, that reminds me, the way the universe used to work was you would have to plug, I think, a script step into at the top of every script. So that's how it would know that the script ran. Yeah, now that I recall. Yeah, so you'd still have to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if I haven't looked into the more exhaustive.
So Tableau has a feature where you have a Tableau dashboard and it's on the Tableau server.
Yeah.
And whenever you access it, it's like a web page. It's like whenever you access that page, it's recording, oh, someone viewed this dashboard, right? And so what they do is they periodically say, here's all the list of dashboards on that server. And, you know, at some point, like, oh, these ones haven't been accessed in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Throw them away. If they need it, they come back asking
in our
for
case,
it.
it would be like over a year or something like that. But yeah, still, we need something like that.
But then again, you know, maybe it's that yearly tax report that you need, and it's gone. And it's like, you know.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
So,
it's every 13 months or something like that.
I was going to say log and make a help ticket. If we have a script that we think we can delete, we'll rename it and see if anyone comes screaming because it broke in direction. And then next up we'll log it, which you said you don't want to do, but that's what we do. And one thing that's a tiny bit interesting is if we have a script that's called by a button on one and only one layout. I don't know if this is a good idea, but I've done it at least once. You put a go to layout in the script.
Yeah.
And then it tells you like, I'm running from this layout, and it's benign because it's like go to the layout that you're already on because you click the button on this layout. But it's sort of it's a document without having to go to an analytics tool, which are great.
Yeah. So in case the layout changes or things like that. Yeah, I've done that with I do that with like script names. Like this script name, this depends on another script. And then I just put a perform script there, and I just comment it out so that if that other script name ever changes or anything happens to it, there's a line there that doesn't require me to.
No. We're going to come out with some like new AI capability. It's going to be your AI assistant, and it's going to have attitude. So basically, Eric, what the hell are you doing? Why are these layouts not used? Come on, get rid of them. Let's go. Let's get rid of them. So it's just going to do your work. Do your work for you.
Darren come back again. Darren keeps coming back for more.
Oh, yeah. I hear you picking it up. Oh boy. So yeah. So anyway.
All right. Well.
There you have it.
All right. I'm gonna stop this recording.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I don't know if you say don't.
No. I don't want to stay in the recording.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be good, huh? All right. Here we go. Oh, wait, I know. I can just I can pause it.